Once upon a time in craft book land, there was a ruler that lorded over them all. It was Save the Cat writes a novel by Jessica Brody. And then, one day, out of nowhere, but not actually out of nowhere because she marketed it really well, came a new competitor. Save the Cat writes a young adult novel. And because some of us recorded reviews that were way too long for one video, in this video we are going to compare them to each other deeply at a chapter level to determine which one is the true champion, or at least if you should buy it.
Let's talk about how it's different from Save the Cat. So it's really not that different. All of the content is more or less the same because it's all based on Save the Cat, which is a methodology, right? It's not the same copy, however. So here's an example. Let's look at the chapter, Creating Your Story-Worthy Hero. We are going to compare these directly. So the beginning of this chapter, I'm going to compare these chapters directly to each other so you have an idea of what to expect. It's very representative of the amount of content in the rest of the book, except for a couple of exceptions, which I will mention in a minute. So, Creating Your Story-Worthy Hero, this chapter. Save the Cat has spoilers for Because of Winn-Dixie, Frankenstein, Life of Pi, Misery, and Ready Player One. Save the Cat writes a YA novel, has spoilers for Aristotle and Dante, Children of Blood and Bone, An Ember in the Ashes, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, The Inheritance Games, One of Us is Lying, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, Thrown in a Glass, Truth About Forever, and Warcross. So like more, but also it contains spoilers for. So what I've learned is that there are examples beyond what's in the spoilers if she doesn't spoil them, if that makes sense. So after the spoilers, it says, and I'm gonna read the Save the Cat version first, reading verbatim here. The relationship between character and plot is an essential one. It's why we start the Save the Cat methodology here with the main character, who from here on out I will be referring to as the hero of your story. Because doesn't that just sound better? A hero is proactive and important and worthy of having an entire novel revolve around them. In the world of Save the Cat, we write about memorable characters who do memorable stuff, but most of all, we create heroes, male and female, who are destined to be the center of a plot. Cool. So we have that. Now that was Save the Cat. Now here is the same beginning of the same chapter in Save the Cat YA. Before we can talk about what happens in your novel, we have to talk about who it's about. You will find these two things are intimately related. The who is the anchor of your story's construction, not to mention your reader's guide through the story. So regardless of what stage of the novel development process you're at now, I urge you to put all of that aside. Clear the desk of all the sticky notes and your head of all the noise and just focus on one thing for now, your hero. That's what we'll be calling your main character from here on out. Because it just sounds more important, doesn't it? It sounds cool. If you're going to be asking your reader to read 200 plus pages about this person, they better sound cool. They better be worthy of those pages. There you go. So you can see basically it's the same content with different copy. Even the tone is very similar. You have that same it sounds more important, doesn't it? Very similar tone, very similar content. After that, we have a slight divergence, but not really. So Save the Cat YA breaks up the next part into three separate sections with subheadings. So a problem, a want, and a need. And it also has further subheadings like goals must be tangible, what's standing in their way, 10 universal life lessons. Save the Cat, or at least the version that I have, it just has all of it in kind of one big chunk, obviously paragraphs, but it isn't subheaded out. That might just be the edition that I have. But I like that in the YA version, they subhead it out. I really like organization. I find it's easier on the eyes, makes it an easier read. Okay, there are some changes where they try to make things specific to teenagers. So for example, their goal is what they're actively pursuing, and it can be almost anything. To get accepted to a dream college, to solve a mystery, to catch the evil creature that's been ravaging nearby villages, to get back together with an ex, to get 1 million followers online. Whereas, if we look at the adult version, the same list in Save the Cat is a better job, more money, to be more popular in school, gain their father's approval, solve a big mystery case, and so on. That is your hero's goal. So similar, but you just have a different sort of YA bent. She also does take time to emphasize how certain things like certain lessons or whatever really resonate with teenagers and like their development, but it doesn't go too much into detail on that. Then we get into a discussion of A versus B story. Here's another example. Again, the structure is very similar. So in Save the Cat, she has a sentence. She gives 3 examples. One of them is Frankenstein. She says, Frankenstein isn't about a scientist who creates a monster. It's about a man who has to repent for his sins. In the YA version, it's the Inheritance Games isn't really about a race to solve an epic puzzle hidden in a dead billionaire's mansion. Although that certainly makes us want to read the book, it's about a girl who needs to grieve the loss of her mother. So you get like the same thing, just different, if that makes sense. And then finally, the end of the story, there is a little bit of change. So Save the Cat just has a section that's called Who is Your Hero? Save the Cat YA has a section called More Heroes, More Problems, where we discuss multiple heroes. And then the section Who is Your One True Hero, which is basically the same as Save the Cat's Who is Your Hero. The exercises at the end of the chapter are exactly the same. So that's the content. That's kind of how it reads differently. Overall, the big difference is, number 1, all of the examples are from YA and they're from books. The next big difference, there are 2 new chapters, and that is the big thing. The first new chapter is called Customizing the Beat Sheet, and this is a very, very, very valuable chapter. It covers writing a multi-POV novel. We talk about early and late catalysts. She has a bit on prologues and whether or not that's the opening image, how that fits in. She talks about flashbacks and backstory. And then she also talks about negative character arcs and kind of the reverse beat sheet. And then the second new chapter is about writing a series. So what she does is she takes what she calls the 5 foundational beats, and she lays out how they have been arranged for different kinds of series. So like a duology, a trilogy, a tetralogy, a 7-book series, and kind of lays out with examples where they put those beats. I think that's super helpful. Is All Is Lost in book 3 or 4, like something like that. Really great worked examples. If you're writing a series, could be incredibly useful to you. So those are the differences. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.